Okay, this is part 3 of the top 10 states in GDP versus the states above the GDP national average versus states below the GDP national average, or part 2, but I think it's part 3. We left off with this front by blue all being connected. I'll just erase that to make it less confusing. All of this territory is blue. And, but Illinois was taken by the red team, which was huge, but they were surrounded. So yeah. Now these nations, with all these 4 states cut off, they hope to cut off this front by, they hope to only have to focus on one front, which is this. So they try to push into these states, and a lot of people were trapped in these states, so they can't escape. They push into New Mexico and a bit into Utah, but they don't make that much progress. Push into the north, they take Reno. That's about as far as they get, though. Yeah. But Reno's taken, but out here in the east, the red team starts invading Maryland as these troops are kind of surrounded. They hope that they can capture this, then they only have to focus on this one front. So this front's very lightly defended because neither side wants to attack on it, because they both want to focus on getting their surrounded areas taken away. So they take Maryland and DC, as well as launch an invasion into Delaware. Delaware falls, and they begin an invasion along the Great Lakes, take Buffalo, they take Rochester, and they put Albany under siege. However, they can't immediately take the city, they have to go up. They take Vermont and Maine, and they take their coast. All of Maine falls. All of Maine falls. Now, basically all these troops are here. That's why they're doing so well. All of Maine falls, and, by the way, Boston is the capital of this, area. So, Boston's the capital of the blue team. So, that's, yeah. The capital is almost fallen. However, the government could just escape, and a new government will be set up in Los Angeles. As the blue team controls the seas, basically through all over. They don't control the sea, but they could still escape. Anyway, the red team keeps pushing into the north of these states, and, ow, I just hurt myself, what the hell? They take Vermont and New Hampshire, which I kinda like to consider the Baltic state. No, that's a bad comparison. Yeah, they take Vermont and New Hampshire, and now the heartland of this area is under threat of invasion. Albany falls, a bunch of this part of New York City area is put under siege. Springfield, Massachusetts is taken. They bring a push, put Providence under siege. If they could take Providence, that means they could cut off Boston from the rest. So New York and Boston would be separated. The government manages to flee Boston. At first, they can make it to New York. So a bunch of troops. So this siege of Providence falls. Boston falls. In the meantime, a force goes crosses the river at Philly, the Delaware, over into New Jersey, and they put the New York City metro area under siege once again. Massachusetts has all fallen, and New York is just the metro area. East Connecticut falls, and now the only thing that's left over here is New York, and now a massive siege of New York is happening, but the government has managed to escape. They escape to Houston, but eventually they're going to reach LA. While that was all happening, a bunch of troops here, well, they were pretty screwed because they were surrounded. These are powerful-ish areas, but they take New Mexico falls, a huge push. They push towards Vegas, hoping to cut this off. They do. Vegas falls, Nevada falls, Utah falls with the fall of Salt Lake City, and Arizona also falls. So now we have one big front, with the exception of New York, with these two opposing sides, a west versus an east. But the west has a lot of stuff from like Illinois and New York. So it's basically west versus east, just these areas. It's very, they don't really like being part of the east. They kind of are west, I guess. While the New York metro area is under siege, it's about to fall. But a bunch of people are evacuated from New York. These people actually conscript into the army, and they are sent to fight on this front. Now, a major front is being set up here. The first thing that they want to do is capture key cities. Most notably New Orleans and Kansas City. Now, New Orleans is hard because it's far away. Kansas City is right there. So they go on the offensive first and just march into Kansas City. It's somewhat defended, but the troops there mostly don't defend well. As well as push, with that taken, however, they push into Iowa and are able to take Des Moines, which they take Des Moines and Iowa falls. And in Louisiana, a major front has been set up. Here in Texas, they take much of this part of the state. However, the Mississippi, I guess, Delta still hasn't been taken. While this is happening, however, Wisconsin troops start. Wisconsin troops push into Minnesota, and they take Minneapolis, St. Paul, and with it, the Minnesota front basically crumbles, and the state surrenders to, Minnesota surrenders to the red team. Now this orange team, which is aligned with the blue team, but not part of the blue team, now borders the red team, and they're under threat, so, this red team actually gets invaded, or this orange team gets invaded, because they were helping the blue team, yet they were part of the red team, and the blue team, like, they try to help them, but it doesn't really, they don't send all of their forces. However, once they take South Dakota, the blue team rushes a bunch of forces into Montana to cut off this, and then Montana is fully taken by the blue team. However, South Dakota, because there weren't blue team troops in there, does easily get taken by the red team, and the Republic of South Dakota and Montana, unfortunately, won't last any longer. And that's why I'm gonna end this video. It's basically west versus east at the moment, with the exception of New York. Siege of New York, not an easy city to siege. At least the main boroughs are islands. But yeah, the city is being destroyed. People are fleeing, and it's just bad. Many are going to Philly or Boston or even out west, because this nation, the blue nation, is richer, obviously higher GDP. So, that's where I'm gonna end this video. Part 3 or 4, I don't know which part, coming